morning, students. Today, the topic which we are going to discuss is defense mechanism. The learning objective of today's topic are personality. You will able to define what do you mean by personality. Personality determines what are the different determinants of personality. Big five personality traits and defense mechanisms. Personality, the sum total of ways in which an individual reacts and interacts with others, means it's a way and it is a sum total of ways in which an individual is reacting and interacting with other people. Personality is a pattern of stable states and characteristics of a person that influence his or her behavior towards goal achievement. Now, the definition of personality, a relatively stable set of characteristics, means characteristics which are relatively stable that influence an individual behavior, and these characteristics are influencing an individual behavior. Personality determines heredity, environment, situation, culture, family, and social background. All these are the determinants that are affecting the personalities. Now, the theories of personality, trait theory, psychodynamic theory, humanistic theory, and integrative approach. Now, personality traits. A personality trait is a personality characteristics that endures last over time and across different situations. Means the characteristics that last for over time and across different situations. Trait theories of personality focus on measuring, identifying, and describing individual differences in personality in terms of traits. Focus in on what is different and not what is the same. Means the personality trait theory focuses is on what is different among the individual, what are the characteristics that are different, not what is the same. Can be used to predict behavior based on traits, and on the basis of the traits we can predict the behavior of an individual. The Miller-Rieger Type Indicator (MBTI), a personality test that tests four characteristics and classified people into one of 16 personality types. Personality types: extrovert versus introvert, E or I; sensing versus intuitive, S or N; thinking versus feeling, T or F; judging versus perceiving, P or J. Now, proactive personality identify opportunities. What are the different opportunities? They identify them. Show initiative, takes action, and preserves until meaningful change occurs. Create positive change in the environment, regardless or even in spite of constants or obstacles. Now, big five personality traits: extroversion. The traits include characteristics such as excitability, sociability, talkatism, assertiveness, and high amount of emotional expressiveness. Sociable, gregarious, and assertive. I love excitement and I am a cheerful person. These are the characteristics of a person who has an extrovert personality. The next one is agreeable. These personality dimensions includes attributes such as trust, altruism, kindness, affection, and other pro-social behavior, good nature, cooperative, and trusting. People find me warm and generous and selfless. Conciseness, common feature of this dimension include high level of thoughtfulness with good impulsive control and good directed behavior. Responsible, dependable, persistent, and organized. People find me reliable and I keep my house clean. Emotional stability. Individuals high in this trait tend to experience emotional instability, anxiety, moodiness, irritability, and sadness. Calm, self confident, secure, positive versus nervous, depressed, and insecure negative. Me very moody, I often feel sad and down. Openness to experience. This trait feature characteristics such as imagination and insight. And those high in this trait also tend to have a broad range of interest. I am very curious person and enjoy challenges. Imaginative, artistic, sensitivity, and intellectualism. Now, defense mechanism. Defenses are unconscious mental process that are related to the unconscious mental process that ego used to resolve conflicts among instincts, wish or need. When defense is most effective, they abolish anxiety and depression. Defenses are dynamic and reversible. When defensive is more effective, they will abolish the anxiety and depressions among the individuals. Ego defense mechanism are mental mechanisms. These are the mental mechanisms used when individual unconsciously experience a basic conflict between its impulses and demands of superego. The ego unconsciously uses some of its energy to initiate a defense mechanism that defects a compromise between it and superego, thereby relative relieving anxiety among the individual. Sullivan those called into play when anxiety is a response to a threat to the self concepts, or another form of mental mechanism. Security options. They act without awareness of the individual employing them. Use of mental mechanism is healthy and lowers reduce the anxiety and it reduces the anxiety of an individual, and it's a normal process of adjustment, and the defense mechanisms are used by the individuals to adjust, and this is a process of adjustment, and this process of adjustment is a normal process of adjustment. Method of self protection is by ego mechanisms. Now the first defense mechanism that we are going to discuss is compensation. Compensation is a pattern of adaptive behavior by which anxiety from feeling of inadequacy or weakness is relieved as individual emphasize of intensive training of some personal or social attributes that other shadows his inadequacy or being social attribute. Means an individual try to compensate in another field. It can be seen in infant who substitute his thumb for nipple to relieve tension and compensate for some pleasure sensations of suckling. A polio child can be an artist and painter or develop his muscles of upper lips and becomes archery expert. Means he is compensating his polio. Now, displacement. When an individual unconsciously believes he would be in great danger, means when an individual unconsciously believes that he would be in a danger, of that person knew his feeling about same person. He discharge of feelings onto a person or object entirely different from the one to which they actually belong, and he is discharging his feeling onto a person or object entirely different from the one to which they actually belong, that feeling of fear. He displaces his emotions to other person or object, which is less anxiety producing, and he is displacing his emotions to other people or object, and by that he is less anxiety producing. Example first, teacher who is angry with supervisor cannot show his feeling. Means a teacher is angry with his supervisor, but he cannot show his feeling to that supervisor, but reacts with reasonably anger when a student break a window pane. And that teacher who cannot show his angriness to the supervisor will react with unreasonable anger when a students break a window pane. Actually, teacher has unconsciously substitute the students for supervisor and display his feeling. Now, what the teacher has done, the teacher has actually unconsciously substituted the student for the supervisor and displays his feeling. Now, the example two, husband got annoyed with boss. Come home. He is annoyed with the boss. Scold the wife unnecessarily. And what he is doing, after coming to the home, he scolds his wife unnecessarily. And wife beats the child when he asks for a sweet. And what happened? And wife beats the child when that child is asking for the sweet. In this emotional feeling is transferred to person or object from one person to another, and that is less dangerous than who initially aroused the emotion. Now, the next mechanism is sublimation. In mechanism of sublimation, the energy involves in anxiety, produce primitive impulsive is unconsciously redirected into constructive and socially acceptable channels. It is one of positive adaptation to anxiety and responsible for much of artistic and cultural achievements of civilized people. It is when women redirects her sexual desires into successful career of poetess. Example first, Mahadevi Verma and Tulsi Das are examples of this sublimation. Tulsidas, after scolded by his wife, turned his psychic energy, libido energy into poetry. Means now he is transferring his scoldness by his wife into his psychic energy and turned into a poem. Sublimation is a positive mechanism in which the primitive impulsive are transferred or direct to a socially useful goal. Unacceptable desires find an acceptable outlet. Means unacceptable desires, by the help of this uh, defense mechanism, find an acceptable outlet. Example 2, man with strong sex desire utilized in painting a nude woman. And now he is substituting that. Now substitution. Mechanism used to reduce tension resulting from frustration. Means uh, the defense mechanism, and that defense mechanism is the substitution, and that substitution is used to reduce tension, and that tension resulting from the frustration. Substituting action must have certain similarities to the frustrated one. Example, student who has not able to get admission in MBBS may try to substitute it with other course of physiotherapy or nursing. Now what he is doing, he, if he is not able to get the admission in MBBS, now he is reducing his tension by using this mechanism and may try to substitute it with other course of either physiotherapy or nursing. Now, fixations. It is arrest of emotional development at a stage. Fixation refers to the point in the individual's development at certain aspects of emotional development cease to advance. Further development is blocked. They cannot bypass that phase. He is always handicapped in proceedings to the stage that follow. Example 1, child who is not breastfeed and did not get love and security. He will achieve gratification through oral cavity. He may overeat or take a huge quantity of alcohol and becomes drunkard. They are called as oral personality individual. Thumb sinking in adult life is an example of it. Denial. It is a process where the individual truly does not recognize the existence of an event or feeling. Means the individual uh, is not recognizing the existence of an event or a feeling. Denial is used in schizophrenia, and this defense mechanism is used in schizophrenia. It is often seen as a reaction of the healthy person when he is confronted by a disastrous situation. Example: sudden death of husband in road accident, but wife refused to accept it. Means the husband has uh, got into a road accident, but his wife is refusing to accept it that his wife husband has been dead in a road accident. She says that he had breakfast with me. Now he is saying that he had breakfast with me. You are mistaken. Means the person who has dead in the accident cannot be his husband. Please excuse me means now he is denial that thing which is existent. In cardiac case or cancer, it is in response to sudden passive amount of anxiety. Denial is not lying. Individual does not accept existing of something that's disturbing. Now through that denial's defense mechanism, the individual does not accept the existing of something, and that why he is doing so, because that existing is disturbing him. Now the next one is identification. It useful mechanism because it's play a larger part in development of a child's personality. Means the identification plays a larger part in the development of a child personality. Through this process, individual defends against anxiety. Through the process of identification, individual is defending against anxiety, resulting from feeling of inadequacy by unconsciously taking on desirable attributes found in people for whom he has admiration and affection. He integrates these attributes into his personality. He is integrating these attributes into his personality so that he can defend against anxiety. Now, example first, a child takes on masculine attributes that he admires in his father. Means what he is doing, he is attributing that masculine traits or characteristics that he admires most in his father. Another form of identification is observed when an individual develops unreasonable sympathy for a criminal because of an unconscious sense of guilt. When an individual develops unreasonable sympathy for a criminal, and he is developing that unreasonable sympathy for that individual because of an unconscious sense of guilt, and because of that unconscious sense of guilt he is developing unreasonable sympathy for that. The next is introjections. Mechanism of introduction is closely related to identification. Means the mechanism of introjections is closely related to the mechanism of identification. Introjection tends to replace all or part of personality. Means that defense mechanism is tending to replace all or part of a personality. Interjection is that entire personality of a second person has been incorporated and has replaced the original personality. Now, when we are talking about this defense mechanism is that entire personality of a second person has been incorporated, and what happened, and it will replace the original personality of that particular individual. Introjections may operate in a less constructive way than identification. Now, the first example is psychotic patients acts as Moses. His own personality had given up. A depressed person may have unconsciously incorporated another person's and attempt to commit suicide to kill the interjected person whom he unconsciously hate. Example 2. After marriage, lady takes all values of husband and thinks its own. She incorporates the personality of her husband. Now, after marriage, what happens? A lady takes all the values of an husband, and what is now happening? That he is incorporating and he is replacing the original personality of its own. She incorporates the personality of an husband. Now, the next one is isolation, where feelings are detached from the event in the individual memory, enabling the person to recall the event without anxiety. Where feelings are detached means this mechanism helps the individual to detach its feeling from the event in the individual's memories, and that in the event has an individual memories, enabling the person to recall the event without anxiety, and it's helping the person to recall that event without having anxiety. It is found in OCN, compulsive personality, and that self defense mechanism of isolation is found in compulsive personalities of an individual. They value efficiency, cleanness, and punctuality, and the persons who are having the compulsive personalities OCN, they value efficiency, cleanness, and punctuality. Example: first, giving death back to a patient without any emotions by nursing staff. Now, what he is doing, he is detaching her feelings from that particular patient. When he has to give a death pack to a patient, so the nurse can only able to do that when he will not have any emotions related to that particular patient. So he has to detach his feeling from the person in individual memories, enabling the person to give him the death back. Now, rationalization. Rationalization is a mental mechanism. It's an again a mental mechanism that is almost universally employed, and that defense mechanism is employed by almost in every part of the universe. It is an attempt to make his behavior a result of logical thinking. Now, rationalization attempt to make his behavior, the make his behavior, individual behavior, a result of logical thinking rather than result of unconscious desire that are anxiety producing. Result of logical thinking rather than result of unconscious desires that are in the unconscious mind of an individual that are anxiety producing, and those unconscious desires are producing anxiety. It is a face saving device that may or may not deal with the actual truth. Now, the rationalization, it's a face saving device that may or may not deal with the actual truth. Rationalization is almost unconscious avoidance. It relieves anxiety temporarily, but not an effective mechanism of adjustment. Means rationalization helps to relieve the anxiety, but the anxiety will be relieved for a temporary basis, but not an effective mechanism of adjustment. But we cannot call rationalization as an effective mechanism of adjustment that can be used by an individual so that he can adjust in a proper manner to his environment, because it helps the people to avoid facing the reality, because the rationalization, the defense mechanism of rationalization, help the person to avoid facing the realities. And when the person is avoid facing the reality, it will relieve his anxiety for a temporary basis, but it cannot be an effective mechanism of adjustment. Person give logical excuses. Student says that due to sickness she could not pass. Its grapes are sour mechanism. Example first. Alcoholic will say that due to lack of sleep he takes drink. Now he is using that defense mechanism and he is saying that he is taking alcohol because he cannot sleep. Example 2. Paranoid patient will say that people are after me because I have lot of money. Now again, a paranoid patient is using that mechanism and he is saying that people are after him because he has lot of money. Now the next defense mechanism, that is regression. Fibrinic depression. Regressions occur when an individual is faced with anxiety from a conflict, and that uh, defense mechanism will be used by an individual when that individual is facing a conflict due to the anxiety that cannot be solved by using the adaptive mechanism, and that conflicts cannot be solved by using the adaptive mechanisms with which he used to solve problems, and with the adaptive mechanism that he is using to solve the various problems of his life. In such a situation, in that situation, he may unconsciously return to the patterns of behavior appropriate to an earlier developmental stage, and he retreat into a state of dependency on others to avoid facing acute problems. Crying on someone's shoulders is symbolic of infant seeking comfort on maternal bosom. Example 1. When a grown-up girl failed and cries, lies on floor and have temper tantrum, it is found in Hibranic. Schizophrenia, when patients regress back into infant stage, he smears his hand with his own stool. Now the next is depression. Painful experiences, unacceptable thought, experiences that are painful to an individual, unacceptable thoughts that are not acceptable by that particular individual, and impulses are dismissed from conscious mind to unconscious mind. During childhood, they are repressed and become unconscious source of emotional conflict in later life, and during childhood, they are repressed and become unconscious source of emotional conflicts in later life, in the later part of an individual life. Selfish, hostile, sexual feeding are repressed. Such repression cause internal conflicts, and such repressions are causes internal conflicts among an individual. Example first, mother death and trauma are repressed in unconscious mind, means the death of a mother related and repressed in the unconscious mind of an individual. These repressed conflicts may come out to conversion into physical symptoms, and these repressed conflicts that has been due to the mother's death and trauma. These repressed conflicts may come out through conversion into physical symptoms. This is common in hypersteria and hypochondrias. Now the next defense mechanism is projection. Projection is transferring the responsibility for unacceptable ideas. Means here we are transferring the responsibility for unacceptable ideas, wishes or thoughts to another person. Unacceptable ideas, wishes or thoughts to another person. When individual own aggressive thoughts are unacceptable to him, when an individual own thoughts and those thoughts are aggressive, and these are aggressive thoughts are not acceptable to him, and these thoughts are causing anxiety among him, he blamed someone else for it, and he is blaming for its anxiety to someone else. It is used in paranoia, and type of this type of defense mechanism is used in situations of paranoia. He is suspicious about infidelity of his wife when actually he lack of fidelity in his mind. Example 1, student blame the teacher that he has failed me. Now, the student is not thinking why he was failed. He was failed because he did not work hard. But what he is doing, he is using this defense mechanism, the defense mechanism of projection. And what he is doing, for his own failure, he is blaming the teacher that he is failed because the teacher has failed him. I have done well, but he has something against me, so he has failed me. Now, what he is saying, that he has done the paper very well, but then also he is failed, and he is failed because the teacher has something against him. Now, example 2, paranoid person may project his own inner hate of others by saying that group of people is plotting to kill him or intending to exploit him. Now, what he is doing now, he is projecting his own inner hate of others by saying that group of people is plotting to kill him or intending to exploiting him. The next one is conversion. Conversion refers to the expression of emotional conflicts, and that defense mechanism is refers to the expression of emotional conflict through physical symptoms for which there is no organic basis. Through physical system for which there is no organic basis. It is preceded after repression, and this conversation preceded after repression. All painful experiences repressed into unconscious mind. All the painful experiences that an individual is having repressed into unconscious mind, stored in that unconscious mind of an individual. When the conflicts reappears as physical symptoms, and when that particular conflict reappears as physical symptom, patient is not aware of connection between two periphones, and that particular patient is not aware of the connections between this one and that was previously had. Although physical symptoms is symbolically related to the nature of conflict. This symptom always served to distract attention from his real problems he gained through this. And this symptom means the symptoms is serving to distract attention from his real problem. What are the actual real problems which he is facing? He gains two ways. His anxiety is relieved. The primary gain is that his anxiety is relieved. He gained attention and sympathy of others. And the second gain is that he gains the attention of other people and the sympathy of other people. Now, the example, a child who sees the conflict between parents, both of them loves him, he became blind. Means he is seeing the conflict between his parents, but he is seeing that both of them loves him, so he became blind to the conflict that has been between the parents. A soldier who loves his country but don't like killings. He loves his country very much, but he does not like killing. Get paralysis of right hand, so he is not able to pull the trigger. And what happens? He get paralysis of right hand, and because of that, he will not able to pull the trigger. Now, when that happens, he do not have to kill anyone. A child who has to go to boarding next day. A child has to go to the boarding next day. He got paralysis of leg. What happens? He got the paralysis of legs before he has to go to the boarding. So she is safe from going away from parents and get attention also. Now the paralysis of legs helps him to save him from going away from the parents and also able to get the attention of their parents. It is used in history, and this process was used in history. Symbolization and condension. Symbol is an idea or object used by conscious mind in lieu of actual idea or object, and that has been used by the actual idea or object. Instinctual desires may appear through symbols, the meaning of which are not clear to conscious mind. Example 1. Phallic symbolism of large automobile served to reassure this individual about his adequacy as a male. Symbols are the language of unconscious mind. Such symbols appear in dreams or fantasy. Condensations represent a wide range of anxiety, producing ideas that become lumped together. When they rise to conscious level, they take the form of an apparently incoherent jumble of words, real meaning of which is hidden in the unconscious mind. Example: in schizophrenic patient was has irrational language. This condension has meaning for themselves only word salad. Reaction formation: when individual experience anxieties resulting from unconscious feeling. When an individual is having anxieties and the results of those anxiety is the unconscious feeling that are unacceptable to him, and those feelings are unacceptable to him, and relieve the anxiety by doing in a way that is directly opposite to what he really feels. Example: people who behave extremely friendly and polite have unconscious feeling of anger and hatred. These true feelings may be evident in slips to tongue. Example 2. Reaction formation develops out of rigid toilet training experience. He wants love of his mother but don't want to expel the stool and enjoy anal retention. If he does not expel, mother is angry with him. So he does against his wish and expel it to gain love of mother. Example 3. OCN person may be very untidy, unorganized in adult life. Because his mother was very strict to cleanliness, he will do opposite what he wants to do really. Summarization, introduction, structure of personality, level of consciousness, psychosexual development, and defense mechanisms. So today students we have discussed all these things. For further understanding on these topics, you can refer these references. Now let us discuss some MCQs as MCQs are the best way to know the learning outcomes of the learner, how much they have learned a particular concept or topic. The first one is pick the correct order of stages in development. Means you have to pick the correct order of the stages in development. The first one is repression, denial, projection, isolation, regression. The second one is oral, anal, phallic, literate, and genital. The third one is litany, oral, denial, anal, genital. D. Birth, child, adult, die. E. Phallic, oral, latency, genital, anal. So the correct answer is option B. That is the correct order of the stages of development is oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. Now, what is an example of regression? Options are feeling of an ex-boyfriend, denying something ever took place, C. Returning to an earlier age to cope with situation, D. Telling the truth, or it's E. Holding your anger in. So these are the options, students, and you have to select the correct answer on the basis of the given choices. And the correct answer will be option C, that is returning to an earlier age to cope with situations. Now the third one is forcing thought to remain unconscious in order to avoid the anxiety. That would result if they were conscious is the definition of which Freudian defense mechanism. Now the options are A. Denial, B. Isolation, C. Regression, D. Repression, or it's E. Projection. So these are the options, student, and the correct answer is option D. That is repression. Now the fourth one: which of the following statement is false in describing a person with a high achievement motive? Now the options are they constantly get better grades from early chosen courses. They have the desire to start a new business. They try harder if they do poorly. Option B, they want a challenge but also want to know they can do it. Or option D, they return to incomplete tasks. So these are the options, students, and the correct one will be option A. That is, they constantly get better grades from easy chosen courses. Use the following story to answer questions 1 to 3. Tom and Sally have been dating for 2 years. Sally breaks up with Tom because he cheated on her with Betty. Sally tells her friend Kelly about Tom, but she tells her without showing any emotions. Tom continues to call Sally and treat her as he did when they are going out. Betty did not know about Sally, tells Tom that she is glad that he feels guilty for hurting Sally. She also tells him that it will take a long time to get over the guilt. Sally is using dash as a defense mechanism. Options are A. Repression, B. Denial, C. Projection, D. Isolation, or it's E. Regression. So the correct answer is option D, that is isolation. Tom is using dash as a defense mechanism. Options are repression, B. Denial, C. Projection, or D. Isolation. So the correct answer is option B, that is denial. Betty is using dash as a defense mechanism. Repression, B. Denial, C. Projection, or it's D. Isolation. So these are the choices, students. Now you have to select the correct answer. So the correct answer is option C. That is, Betty is using isolation as a defense mechanism. Now, according to Sigmund Freud, the superego, the options are, is the source of psychic motivations such as sex and aggression, is developed in the anal stage, represent rationality and reality. D uses strategies to solve conflicts between conscious and unconscious aspects of personality. Is responsible for gender identity and sexual orientation. So these are the options. Now you have to select the correct answer, and the correct answer is option E. Now, ninth one, Anna husband dies and she continued to set a place for him at the dinner table. This is an example of B. Repression, B. Denial, C. Problem focused coping, D. Adaptation, or it's E. Projection. So these are the options, and what will be the correct answer? And the correct answer will be option B. That is, the defense mechanism that the Anna is using is denial. Now, the tenth one. Which of the Freud three main structure of personality is described to be unconsciousness and pleasure seeking? The options are A. Superego, B. Id, C. Projection, or it's D. Ego, or E. Sublimation perception. So the correct answer is option B. That is it. So thank you, students. With this particular narration, you have understand the meaning of personality and the different defense mechanisms that are being used by the individual so that he can reduce his anxiety, frustration, and to want to save him from the depression. Thank you, students. Thank you so much.